Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar for today, where we will be reviewing some fraud trends and also review some best practices in how to prevent fraud. With me today is Doug. I'm Cornelius Hattingh. I'm the Director for Accreditation, Compliance and Revenue Integrity, and I'll hand over to Doug to do a quick introduction, and then I'll do some housekeeping.
All right. Afternoon, everyone. I'm Doug Nass. I'm the Director of Fraud Investigations at ARC. Been doing this for a long time, so hopefully you'll enjoy some of the stories. It's always good to hear about the schemes that are going on and some of the inside information as to how these fraudsters operate. So I hope you enjoy the next hour.
Perfect. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, and if you've joined us in the past, you'll know that we do a Q&A throughout the session. So if you look at your toolbar, potentially on the right-hand side, you will see a section there for Q&A. And please feel free to type in your questions there for us, and we'll read those out as they come in, and or where we have a moment break to review those questions. The webinar is very always we like to be an interactive. We like interactive participation, so please input for us, and we'll do our best. If for reason we can't, we always try to after the webinar as well. On the in addition to I'd also just want to let you all know that we say, I think it's August 1st, we have another session with us, partnering with them and other frauds. Just, change that's happening in the industry. In addition to that, I also want to create awareness for everybody here that there has been ARA changes approved, and they are going forward and into effect August 25th. ARC will do a communication plan around those changes and what those mean starting July 3rd. So please be aware and take note of those changes and the updates to the ARA as those do have a downstream impact on your business and readiness, ensuring readiness for those changes as well. So as we dig into this webinar, oh, sorry, Doug, you wanted to add something?
Nope, that's good.
Okay, perfect. So as we move on to the next slide, basically there's a grouping of trends that we continue to see. We've got here the unauthorized access issues, which are normally through phishing emails or other account compromises. But I would say 98% of the instances that we see here in the US is related to phishing. We have had reports in from Europe and other locations across the globe, where it's sort of an email breach, where consumers or an agency's email is actually compromised, and then because they have access to the files there, they got access to the PCCs and passwords and everything else there. So it wasn't necessarily a phishing scheme; it was more a different type of compromise. But phishing remains a huge burden on the industry. ARC and the GDSs have done a lot over the last year to 18 months to educate and also implement solutions to safeguard the agencies. It is in your hands, though, as an agent, to really take on those safeguards and implement them, and follow those best practices, referencing Section B of the ARA that was updated a couple of months ago or earlier this year, really outlining the need for security, especially cybersecurity requirements, etc., around the reasonable care aspect when it comes to phishing, and the need for agencies to have multi-factor authentication as provided or available by your system provider. So that's a key element here for safeguarding, is the multi-factor authentication. Of course, GDSs have other safeguards that you could activate and use, and we'll talk to that a little bit more in one of our follow-up slides here. But really, multi-factor authentication is key. Just this weekend, we had 3 instances of phishing that were reported to us. It's the 3 agencies that were affected by that phishing email combined had about a potential loss of 60,000. This is after all the voids have been done, all of the remediation that is possible within a very short period of time has been done. The potential losses, they would have been significantly higher, but because of the voids and the responsiveness in the alerts and heeding those alerts that both the GDS sends out and ARC sends out, there's a reduction in those losses, but ultimately those 3 agencies still had an outstanding liability of 60,000. Now, if they had multi-factor authentication activated, that probably wouldn't have been an issue, because even if they did click the phishing link, they would the fraudster might not necessarily have had access to that validation, that one-time call out for that multi-factor authentication validation piece, and the agency would have not had those losses. There are ways, unfortunately, as well, where fraudsters do get access to your to that second factor authentication piece, but those are few and far between at this stage. Multi-factor authentication still remains a valuable tool to prevent fraudsters from accessing your environment, especially when there's so many phishing campaigns out there and continuing to exploit. Again, there are other safeguards. We'll get into those in a minute, but I really just wanted to focus in on this because this remains an issue, and it's still very disconcerting to see how few agencies have actually adopted the solutions that we've been pushing forward, the GDSs have put in place, etc., to prevent and or safeguard themselves against these frauds. So, Doug, I'm going to pause there for you to add any flavor to that and or discuss any of the other topics we will be addressing.
Yeah, just we're loving the implementation of multi-factor, not only to protect your GDS, but also safeguarding your systems, because there's other types of phishing emails out there by different sets of criminals who are there to drop malware and ransomware on the system. So you got to really think not only the GDS, but they're trying to hijack your platforms. And we've been in contact with multiple agencies that were targeted, and they say it's one of the most terrible things to try to recover from, is to deal with fraudsters trying to get money out of you, cryptocurrency, and then recover your systems. So it's another, just setting that bar a bit higher to make life more difficult for the fraudsters. Yep.
Absolutely. And then and aside from that, we continue to see credit card fraud. We at ARC, we track obviously known fraudsters, known names of fraudsters or travelers in our systems. We have a list of bad cards. We do bin validation. We do a lot of lookup and validation and review of the data that's incoming to us, and of course through that we do send out fraud alerts to the agency community, with the objective there really to help you identify the fraud, give you an opportunity to respond to that and react to it, ideally doing a void when the void window is still open, for you to remediate or prevent that fraud from growing or actually affecting you in any negative way. So when you do get those fraud alerts, please really take a moment to look at them. do some real validation. I mean, we do get instances where agencies tell us, no, this is legitimate transactions. 3-4 days later, they come back to us and like, you know what? Those really weren't legitimate transactions. It looked good. Our systems allowed it. We double checked it. We thought it was good. It wasn't. They weren't good transactions, and unfortunately, the agency had a financial loss, right? So we try and do a lot. Again, we're not necessarily the point of sale, so we do have data delays when we through the GDSs, and also because of our batching functionalities, there are delays in the data that we get. So the first point of protection is your agency and your rules and your fraud risk and levels, etc. That you are that's so you have a BS or net within your industry. And so when we do see that, I mean, the team looks at this data on a daily basis, you know, 99.9 very accurate, the information that they have, and when they send out that alert, they are very confident in the fact that you take a moment to really validate and review those transactions that are to give yourself peace of mind. And if you're still happy with the fact that these are legitimate transactions, like I said, this is it's all based on your risk levels and what you're comfortable with and how you want to do your business. But ultimately, you know, do listen or do at least take note of those alerts that we do send out, because they do we have seen that they bring value to the agency community. So please, you know, just give it a moment of your time.
Yeah, I just want to add, you know, those are sometimes the first warning that customer or you think you've got that customer and it's really a criminal. This happens all the time of, oh, I looked at your fraud alert, you know, why we consider it suspicious. And sometimes it's like, well, we've seen that passenger travel multiple times on it's that turned into chargebacks. And oh, by the way, on the same credit card, there's 3 or 4 additional passengers. So we put that forward in front of you, not to waste anyone's time. You know, we're sending it out. We're concerned. We really appreciate getting the feedback as well. That you know, if it's a legit, why it's legit. Emails, anything else the agency might have obtained, we really do.
So yeah, and it helps us, you know, strengthen our rule sets. It helps, you know, validate that the information that we have is accurate. And ultimately, you know, downstream we do feed it into the to the Perseus environment, which is a community tool-based environment where that information is loaded and validated, and agencies and airlines do have access to that data to do checks and validation. We actually have a solution available to agencies, you know, called ARC Risk Check. Check it out. It's on our website, which is a solution that you can implement either via an API or single checks as an additional way to safeguard your environment. But you know, there's a tool that we brought to market a couple of years back that actually does take in all of the information that we send out in these alerts. It has that information in that environment, plus everybody else who's participating in that community environment, which is a global tool. And it brings in information from the airlines, it brings in information from agencies on a global level, and it has a whole pool of, you know, bad transactions. And you can go in there and you can ping, you can just put in an email account address or phone number. You don't have to get, you know, overly you don't have to provide it with too much information. It will find it, and it will actually give you a score on that transaction or multiple transactions or that you want to review. And you can then make a bit more of an informed decision in addition to whatever other rules you have in place. But this is really a community tool where it's like the fraud has been seen, the fraud has been confirmed, the bad actor has been validated by not just one but multiple participants in that community, and you can sort of have a little bit more confidence in accepting or not accepting that transaction. Doug, we've got a couple of questions. I would say give us a moment, let us get a bit, hopefully that will answer some of your questions, but yeah, let's get to the next slide, Doug, if you don't mind. Just corporate fraud as well, but just to get the slide moving, and this will answer the questions that we have. So background on unauthorized access, phishing being a huge concern. It's nothing new. It's been in the industry for dates, at least, that we know or have captured data on phishing. It's not just the industry, is not just this issue, it's everywhere. Every corporation is vulnerable to phishing. I mean, as ARC, we get a lot of training around phishing and how to identify phishing emails, and then obviously we have ways to report a suspicion of phishing emails within our environment. But it is, and it will continue to be, a major vehicle for fraud, and the environment is just getting more advanced. The fraudsters are getting more advanced. I think a little bit of AI is helping there. Maybe ChatGPT is helping out in them, getting them their wording and spelling accurate and so forth. But so there has been an evolution in the way these phishing emails are being presented, and it gets a little bit harder to identify them, but there are still telltale signs to validate what a phishing email is. So, yep, Doug, we can go into the next slide, please.
All right, we just want to share with you a couple of very recent phishing emails. So the one on the left, all in black, this is, you can look at the email from, it says Saber Red 360, but of course that doesn't mean anything. You have to look at what's after the @ would think about it, who's sending it to you? hotbooking.edu, not saber.com. So and of course they're putting a sense of urgency into this, going out and saying, you need to update your profile by clicking on that link, or else lose access. We will guarantee you that all the GDSs will not send out emails asking you to click on a link. What they will say, and we've seen them, is go to your normal bookmark or go to your normal process of logging in and make any changes or validations through your normal process, never through an email. The one on the right here is a recent one just from a few weeks ago, and for the last really 4 years, for whatever reason, the fraudsters really been targeting Saber, and just copying and pasting their logos, trying to harvest those login credentials. Now, I think I'm guessing maybe the fraudsters realizing it's a little bit harder to do it, even though there were 3 over the weekend. A bunch got voided, but now they're trying to go after Galileo, doing the same thing. It is, requesting click on this link and pass over, go in input your login credentials, and now once again a second GDS, those credentials have been harvested. So, if you walk away with anything today, it is just make sure you go back to all of your employees, to your subcontractors, your outside agents, whatever you want to call them, is remind them legit GDS emails do not contain a link to click on. They will prompt you to go in through your bookmark or your normal login process. So if there's one takeaway, please let that be it.
Yeah, and just to add, even where it seems on the Travelport side, the Galileo email, where it looks like a legitimate URL in the blue line, in the blue text, if you just hover over that, you will see that the wording there is going to be completely different. It's not going to mention Travelport. It's not going to have anything in there. It's going to have, it might even say something bizarre that will be that should just be a dead giveaway that this is not a link to a legitimate site. These link outs, the sign-in site, then Sabre site, and these on the Travelport site, you go to cloned that like you'd expect them to feel and look legitimate, and you always have to look at that URL. Always validate that that's the right URL. When in doubt, get out of there and go back into your usual channel of accessing your account and get into your GDS.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right.
So these will address some of the questions that we have that came in. So I'll read out the questions, and then we can refer to some of these ways to protect yourself. So what else should you do to protect your GDS beside watching out in the email for phishing? So we've talked about that now. And then I think that's the only one that really is relevant to this slide. So really the best thing to do, and do it today if you can, is go and get that multi-factor authentication activated. If you are a Sabre user, they are ready and waiting for you to come in and activate that multi-factor authentication. They have made a lot of changes within their multi-factor authentication platform. They are working on additional changes. They will have a switch over, and ultimately the need for multi-factor will become a mandatory requirement to all travel agencies. It is still not there yet, but it will become a mandatory requirement either later in the year, if not maybe early 2025. This is not just only for phishing because of phishing emails, but it's also a PCI requirement going forward. So multi-factor authentication will eventually become a mandatory requirement. But in order to protect yourself, as we mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, we have 3 agencies over the weekend. They are financially responsible for combined financial loss of about $60,000. You don't want to be another statistic on that list. So please go and get your multi-factor authentication activated as soon as possible. In addition to that, the GDSs do have other solutions as well. You can turn off your cash form of payment. If you're not a cash user, you don't normally ingest cash as a form of payment in your agency, go into your GDS and get that turned off and only use your credit card. The fraudsters, most of these instances, when the fraudster gets into your account, they will go and issue tickets all via cash. So if you have that additional safeguard in place where you have that lockdown as not as a form of payment, that's another layer of protection. Ensure you have all the necessary anti-spyware, antivirus solutions in place, and make sure those are up to date, not from 2007. Those have to be up to date and relevant, and has to comply with your operating systems as well. So your operating system also has to be up to date. Anytime that there's a request for your system to do a refresh or an update, do it. That is when they go in and do all the bug patches and all the fixes where they've identified vulnerabilities. So if there's a requirement for you to do an update or a refresh, please don't ignore it. do it. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes a moment out of your day, but do it. At the end of the day, it's going to benefit you. It's going to help safeguard you, and ultimately, help protect your cyber environment, because cybersecurity and cybercrime is a huge issue and is the growing issue. Doug, you want to add some additional?
Yeah. And
safeguards?
you have to think about these things, that these are happening, these unauthorized access, unauthorized ticketing. It's happening in the middle of the night. So they are accessing your platform and issuing tickets, and you have to think, who's watching the system at 2 in the morning? Is there anyone doing it? So I would think that you would want some extra level of comfort to know, during non-working hours, I'm safe, we're good. So it's just another way to build your castle walls a little higher, build your security walls a little higher. So we strongly urge everyone to, implement these safeguards as soon as possible.
So quick question here relevant to this is, how do fraudsters benefit financially from issuing unauthorized tickets in an agency system? Do they resell the tickets? Doug, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, and this is true for almost every, like traditional credit card fraud schemes. You have to think of these, the GDS hacker or the traditional credit card fraud guy. You have to view them as black market travel agents. They have people that will go to them and say, word gets into a community. The next time you need to get a ticket, you let me know. You pay me X amount. It's always going to be a fraction of the real cost, and that's when they do their deeds. So that's, they are financially benefiting.
Yeah, and they have people on standby, right? So, to Doug, it's a black market, it's a black market sale, travel agency, normally sitting on social media, doing Facebook ads, WhatsApp ads, any which way they can. And in many instances, the traveler is already at the airport, and they're just literally waiting for the travel agency to say, yeah, here's your PNR, go. And they will check in and fly that same day. So that's why weekends, nighttime, that is when this is occurring, and that's normally when people are flying as well. The additional issue that we're seeing is that now when the return legs, a lot of these are normally one-way tickets as well that we've started seeing. So it's literally they get on the flight and they're gone, and you're never going to recover that from that booking. Now, when they do have return flights, what we see is that even on those return flights, they are now reaching out and making that change immediately. So they will do the first leg, knowing that the person who's flying might not necessarily even use that return leg, but they might have someone else stand on standby for that return leg, and they change the date on that sort of the next day or a couple of days later to a more current date rather than the original return date. So the sooner you address it, the sooner you safeguard yourself, and the sooner we avoid these types of fraud, the better off the industry will be. Anything else from this slide that we need to refer?
No, just that, they're very creative. They're good at what they do, which is unfortunate. So anyway, I will go on to the next slide.
And I think Doug mentioned this earlier, is just to ensure all agents, sub-agents, contractors, and all users associated with or having ticketing access, having a PCC, are being made aware of, what to look for in phishing emails and or get multi-factor authentication for those environments, or for your environment.
Yeah. Okay. So now, if you find that yourself or one of your colleagues has fallen for this, immediately go back in, not through the email, but go back in through the usual login procedure and immediately change everything, and ensure that as Cornelius mentioned, every other employee, anybody has access, share what happened, and find out were others in your organization also impacted by it. We also, in these incidents, we require the agent who was targeted to file a police complaint, and we strongly prefer it goes to the FBI through to the Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is at ic3.gov. They know how to handle these. ARC is also in contact with IC3 as well, but that is a great central place where they understand this type of fraud.
Yeah, and if they have any active investigations ongoing, the more information that is being provided to them about these types of frauds, the better chances they have to strengthen their case, right? So really just give them the information, go and report it to them, and they're in the position to really take action against these fraud rings and bring them down. So the more information they have, the more effective they are.
Yeah. Okay. Curtis, you want to address the rest of this?
No, I think it's pretty much we've touched on it in one way or another. But yeah, just having this awareness, making sure everybody in your agency is aware, and then doing the necessary reporting and taking the necessary first steps to safeguard yourself there.
Yeah, and especially running that malware.
To the next slide. Yeah.
Okay. And I just want to add, running that malware, because if it's not a fraud, a phishing email about harvesting GDS credentials, it could be ransomware, and that you'll want to get the professionals on that. Yeah.
Okay, and someone just asked if we can go back one slide to take a photo. We will be sending out this slide deck. So this whole webinar is being recorded, and we will share it out with you. There's no need to take photos. You will get this. That this set up after quick insights on that. That is fantastic to know.
Okay. I'll go on to the next slide.
And I think we're going into the credit card payment fraud. Right?
Yeah, yep, that's next. And so,
okay. So I just have a question around that, actually, so I can find it again. Okay. Hang on one second. Okay, received. Okay. Oh, great participation. Okay, let me find this. Yeah. Okay, so what suggestion do you have for someone trying to use a valid credit card that is stolen? We can get an authorization on the card, but don't know the card is stolen. The name on the card is fictitious. Doug, you want to take that?
So the name, so it sounds like it's a cloned card. It sounds to me if the name on the credit card has been changed, it's going to be a cloned
digits,
card.
The dates are, the expiration date is solid. The CCV is solid. The card number is solid. We're getting authorization on it. So definitely a fictitious name clone card. Yeah. Yeah,
and very likely it is from a purchase of what they call credit card dumps off of the dark web, where our fraudster has approached another fraudster on the dark web. Then they take them back and they start creating physical cards. Typically, I've seen that not too much more in our street. We do have fraudsters who who have traveled around the country committing retail and gift card fraud. But of course, the airline ticket through the airline directly or through a travel agency was itself a bad or a compromised card.
And we will have some examples of what to look for in those clone cards as well coming up. But yeah, that's definitely a concern.
Yeah, but these compromised cards are no matter what type of scheme. Like this is an online booking tool. Last spring, we were alerted by a large TMC about some fraud that had come through, and this blew up into something huge. It went from 6 or 7 passengers, 3 cards, into now we're into thousands of passengers, and many, probably a 1,000+ cards. But what they're doing is they're not going directly on a public-facing website. It is through that corporate, I call it a corporate booking tool, that agencies have corporate clients, university, college clients, in which you offer behind their work site, the university website is a booking platform. This is where this particular fraudster loves to obtain the login credentials. He goes in, he changes the name in the account to his passenger name, issues a ticket, inserting a compromised card. This was really rampant for about 6 or 8 months. It was almost, I could go in and find this activity every single day. Corporate travel agency out there. So it wasn't them getting directly compromised. It was their corporate and university clients. But of course, where does the fraud go? Or who's, the airlines view the corporate agency as responsible. But finally, in late November of last year, one of the biggest online booking tool platforms, they implemented multi-factor. And what was interesting is it immediately stopped. I went from late November up until the second week of January 2024, and I didn't spot any instances. And that's when I learned that the multi-factor had been implemented on this large booking tool provider. Unfortunately, this doesn't stop the fraudster. He found another or a rival corporate booking tool in it was towards the end of the very end of December, and he simply is shifted, and he's now going after this rival booking tool, doing the same thing, obtaining, taking over the account of the true account holder, swapping, changing the name multiple times. Here I've got it identified. There's over 1,500 tickets for about $2 million in losses. So it's a pretty significant one. Actually, it's really over I think 2,200 tickets at about $3 million. So it's a really significant fraud. They were busy last week, not busy this weekend, but sometimes they disappear for a few weeks, but then they turn up once again. Is there a question?
Not on this in particular. So let's go on to the next one. Okay. Just around, there's a lot of questions around multi-factor. I'm going to try and answer them all in one. Reach out to your system provider on how to activate multi-factor authentication. We don't have all that information. Your provider should be the exact details on how to activate your multi-factor with them. So please reach out to them. We don't want to misinform anyone, but it is because we work close with the SS, but we'd rather you go there to the how to obtain and how to activate. But yeah, let's get into this one and
Okay.
conscientious time as well. So
yep. Hopefully this will answer the question earlier about the card or the name on the card changing. Now, if it's physical, someone's coming into the agency with the card, then under that scenario, it would be a cloned card. Under this scenario, what we find most is they're just digitally altering. They're photoshopping credit card images and laying down what they know is a compromised card or account number valid, putting the true cardholder's name. They're doing the same thing with the passports. This has been going on for a very long time. Unfortunately, we still cover it during these types of webinars because it's still successful. We're still finding agencies accepting digitally altered documents and assuming that they've obtained everything they need. But what we highlight is really look for the inconsistencies, the spellings, especially on the front and back of credit cards. Along the right side, you can see Republic of Ghana. That the sex is with an M, but the photo we photoshopped in there is a female. Another great resource would be the first 6 digits of the credit are called the bank identification. The first 6 digits, and they will tell you, oh, this is issued by an Israeli issuer, not USA savings bank image. So we just want to continue to say, be wary of these because it's still successful. Another sneaky little scheme that we have is a fraudster who will do his research online. He will look for international companies or universities even, and he will find out which corporate travel agency in the US handles the account for these types of corporations. And then he will go in and create an email domain that often by adding a hyphen ES, hyphen UK, hyphen, we've seen PH for the Philippines, and it's an email address controlled by the fraudster, and he's hoping to get it past the corporate agent to say, put it on the corporate card. And so you really have to train your employees. Look at the email. Once again, another reason, don't be clicking on things unless you've looked at and scrutinized the email address. Okay. And I think one of the last ones we have here is we've got one specific fraudster who targets consistently, and he's been doing this for years, your after-hours services. When that after-hours agent at midnight might not have someone that can go and confirm. Well, we got this call. They claim to be one of our clients, and of course, once again, this fraudster has done his internet research, either a corporation, an executive. He'll also do it with universities, so somebody high up in the university structure to name drop, to say, I'm a CEO, I'm the president, I'm the CFO. We need these tickets issued urgently. So you need to look and get word out to your after-hours services about be wary of booking requests for unprofiled travelers. Have a policy in place about pushing back to say our agreement with your corporation, your university, is after hours is only for profiled travelers. Another sneaky thing this one does is he hangs on the phone. We've got many recordings of him. So I listen to them to see what he does, how he manipulates the agent's customer service skills with his own social engineering schemes. And one thing he does is he will always ask for, he will wait on a phone for an hour and a half, and ask for that GDS PNR and the airline PNR, so that he'll write them down, and he doesn't have to provide an alternative email address. So that's key, is just warning your staff about late night requests for after hours services.
Yeah, and also if it's someone new, I mean, defer them to the team in the daytime, or defer them to someone else. I mean, I'm not sure of what resources are available to those after-hour teams. Normally, those guys are remote, so they might not necessarily have access to the same tools as the team during the day. So, if it's someone new that's not known to the corporation, try and defer them if possible. Of course, you don't want to lose the business, but if it sounds too good to be true and someone new, try and defer them to a normal business day operations team members, and or rather train their after-hour team, or provide them with the same tools to help prevent this as well. I think you've got a public service announcement from one of our participants here, and thank you for that. It said, be aware of a corporate account who has used credit cards, I assume historically, and then all of a sudden they want to start writing checks for the travel. And the question is, had this happened to anyone else? Because in this example, what has happened is it seems that this corporate customer has gone bankrupt, and subsequently those checks were null and void, and also it seems as if the impacted agency had to return the funds to the bankruptcy administrators, because they was meant to be issued that way. So I think that's tip and awareness. So definitely something I've not across on our side of the business, but yeah, I can definitely see that happening. So definitely thank you for that, and yeah, great awareness for other agencies out there.
Okay.
There was a question here about do we recommend a specific malware or antivirus systems? There's just so many options out there. We say go and find one that suits your business and suits your environment, depending on how big your operation is. There's many options out there. Do some research, or reach out to an IT specialist firm or cybersecurity firm to provide some guidance on that as well. So yeah, nothing from our side that we can recommend. It's just such a vast environment and multiple options depending on the size of your business, types of operating systems, etc. So yeah, do some research, reach out to some experts around that, and get advice from them. Yep, I think we can tackle this one. Foreign call centers.
All right. So this has become, after the unauthorized access, the unauthorized ticketing, this has become a major industry headache, not only for the agency community, but also for the airlines themselves. We do spend a lot of time talking over issues about foreign call centers, meaning they are running a lot of AdWord campaigns on search engines. So if you just go and Google Delta or Southwest or United, oftentimes, and I think things are getting better a little bit, but when especially people don't realize that the first listings may not be the real company. It's a company that is used that tag, is tag that word so that they appear higher in the search results. And what they do is, if you're not paying attention to see that, this is an advertisement or this is sponsored, that you end up clicking, especially on your phone, there a toll-free number will pop up, and you click, you tap on the number, and now you're actually being transferred to somebody back in India.
And another tell is there'll actually be a very small on the side of the name. There'll be in very small font. It'll actually say ad. You'll see it. I mean, if you pay attention, you'll see it. It's very small, but it's visible. And if you see it, that should be a red flag for you immediately, because that is not the legitimate site that you're going to.
Yeah, we do a lot of research on these sites, these websites that pop up. We know that there's hundreds of them that we have tracked over probably the last 9-10 years. It's an issue not getting any better. The fraud schemes going on they don't commit one type of fraud, but a lot of the things that we hear about, either from complaints from consumers directly to ARC, or to consumers that complain to the airline, thinking that all along they were talking to an airline call center rep. So these people may actually misrepresent themselves to say, if you're the caller, to say, oh, by the way, is this Delta? Is this Alaska Airlines? And that person might say yes, or they might say something a little more cryptic like, oh, we are the overflow center, a call center for that airline. So the customer really doesn't realize that they're calling a travel agency on another continent. But the things that we see a lot of, and we do a lot of research on Better Business Bureau. Another interesting one is scammer.info, complaintsboard.com. But it's the same things of, I thought I was talking to an airline rep. I gave them my credit card. Then there was bait and switch pricing. An hour later, they took my card, but apparently bought the airline ticket directly from the website using someone else's compromised card, stolen frequent flyer miles. They'll steal them not only to use for other people's tickets, but they'll redeem them for gift cards. They steal your vouchers, which was incredibly big, especially during COVID. They send in false documents to the airlines claiming death certificate, Photoshop death certificates to get waivers for refunds. But we as an industry are really worried about this one. It's a deep reputational hit, not only to the airlines directly, but also to the travel industry in general.
To legitimate businesses out there, right?
I can't tell you how many times I've gone to Better Business Bureau or read the complaints or scammer.info, and it will say in there, fair warning, I will never use a travel agent again. That happens. Next time I will make sure I connect directly with the airline. And so those are big industry reputational hits that we don't need.
And if these are accredited ARC agencies and we are able to identify this, per the ARA, we are very much against this type of behavior. It's clearly specified in the reporting agreement that you are not to misrepresent yourself or mislead a consumer in any way or form. And when in instances where we do discover that an agency has done this, and of course we do all the necessary due diligence, we will remove the agency from the agency list and participation with ARC. So this is a very, very serious breach of the reporting agreement, and ARC takes it very seriously. And obviously we have our agreements to support us in the actions that we do take against agencies who mislead the consumer, misrepresents themselves as legitimate travel agencies, and an airline. So it is definitely a growing concern, but ARC has definitely made provisions in the agreement that we will take action against anyone who does this type of or puts out this type of fraud.
Another one, just an example of how interconnected these are. This graphic, and of course they've hijacked United Airlines name. That graphic we found at one point on 3 different websites with 3 different website names. There was a telephone number involved that we were able to link to 110 different domains. Not all of them were operational, but it showed the intent of how widespread they were going to go and blast out, you know, these rogue websites in order to get customers to think that they're talking or dealing directly with United.
And Doug, just there's a couple questions here around the verification of a cloned card, or how to do that verification again. Could you just go back maybe to that slide and just go through that again? But yeah, you can do a bin check on that card to compare whether or not the issuing bank is the same as the bank on the card. And there was another option to validate. Normally, depending on how you get the card in, if it's just a photo, you'll see that as photoshopped, or you can look very closely and potentially see that there might have been some Photoshop. But it's bincheck.io. That is where you can go and check the card number and then do that validation check. We actually have on our website, under our resources page, additional examples and additional resources that you can use to do some validation as well around this type of card fraud, clone cards, and validation around that as well.
Yeah, and just one quick one: if you're going to request a new client send in images like this, tell them to include the back of the card. Oftentimes we see many more misspellings or nonsensical word structures from the back. They don't spend as much time fixing mistakes on the back of a card. And then here, and then here is, we've put a bunch of resources available on the public-facing ArcCorp website. A lot of the webinars, those free internet tools like bincheck.io, best practices, examples of digitally altered images, our fraud alerts anytime we send out a warning to the industry about what's going on, especially in the lower right corner, our past webinars on demand, so that this will be uploaded there as well. So here's, just a great place for you to go and get up to speed on the various schemes that are going on out there.
And obviously a great resource as well for training any of your team members as well. So, as we mentioned at the beginning, all these webinars are recorded and then posted out there, so you can go and refer back to them at any point in time.
Okay. You want to speak to this one?
Yeah, and then aside from our resources, the government has put out multiple free resources out there as well as to how to protect yourself and what you can do to safeguard your systems. And these are just some examples of what is out there. Microsoft also has free tools or free learnings and trainings that you can go through as well. But these are sort of one of the main ones that we've identified as beneficial. Of course, we have our own cybersecurity guide as well, which is very much based on the Section B and changes that we made earlier this year within the ARA. So go on there. Judy, is the link still there for the training, or where can we find that link? Because ARC does have a training as well around this cybersecurity piece, and maybe we can send that out after this webinar if anybody is interested.
Yep.
To go and to take that training.
Yep, the training.
Yep, go ahead.
Yep, the training is under the on-demand webinars for the January 6th session, and it will give instructions how to view that webinar with that training on there, and there's a little quiz you can take as well, Cornelius, if that's what you're referring to.
Okay. Yes, that's exactly the one. And Judy, can we make sure we maybe as a follow-up just send out that link to all the participants after the webinar?
Yep.
Please, just so you can go and look at that. I don't see any more questions, and we're coming up to the hour. So I just want to take a moment to thank everybody. Great participation. Love the questions. Thank you for that. It really made the time fly. I said at the beginning of this that I don't think we'll see the whole hour out, but here we are at the top of the hour. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for your participation. Of course, if you suspect fraud or see any fraud, please report that to us. Doug mentioned we do take that information in, and we do assess it, and we do use it to build out our rules. You can send that to us, stopfraud@arccorp.com, and then accessing any of our resources or past webinars, you can just go to arccorp.com/resources for us there. So again, thank you very much for your participation. Greatly appreciate it.